All right, hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with Coach Matt. Rick's still out on vacation, and actually we're probably going to be out. Me and Matt are going away next week, so next week's show will be a little bit different. But we'll figure that out, and I'll tweet out whatever we're going to plan on doing, but it will be the same time. We might have some call-ins this week, but we'll see what happens as we get going. Going to kick it off with the mailbag. First comment, someone was giving me after the whole LeBron thing, which we're going to hit on during this show later. Our main comment we got was NBA is trash. So a lot of Pittsburgh people do not like the NBA, apparently, because we got a lot of negative comments about the NBA. But we're going to talk about it. It's a slow season, not a lot of Pittsburgh stuff going on. And we also had someone send in, and ESPN put together their top college programs or college universities that produce the most pro talent, professional sports talent, and they picked the leagues that I wouldn't even consider professional sports. They had Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, NHL, NFL, and NBA, the main five. They also added in WNBA, and they added in Major League Lacrosse and NLP, which is a professional softball league. So, of course, I was a little intrigued by this selection. So I dug into it a little bit. Major League Lacrosse, those players don't even earn a living wage. Their salary is between 10 and 20 grand. I think they said, or 7 grand, I think, and 20 grand. So it's not even anything that they can live off. And to me, I don't care if you're a college and you're trying to tout that you're getting kids ready for the professional leagues, which it looks like ESPN is doing. That's not getting you ready for a professional league. To me, professional is, I know you're making money, but you're basically making a living. Because where's arena football on this list then? I mean, they sign players from somewhere. They have to hold a draft. They've been going on. I think they said that the leagues had to be around for 10 years or something for them to make the list, but arena football's been going on for decades. What about Canadian Football League? Why pick Major League Lacrosse? It didn't make any sense. And Softball League, I looked into it. Each team signs 20 players. The salary cap is $150,000. They said top players earn $50,000, which is a livable wage. It's what the average or whatever the low end for the WNBA is. So that's why I don't have a beef with the WNBA. You're making a decent salary around what most people make out of college, or at least if they make their degree what they hope to make out of college. But you have softball where it said, okay, they have $150,000 per team. If one player makes $10,000 or $50,000, then the rest of the team is making less than 10 grand, which happens on some teams apparently. And to me, that's not, I mean, I know it's a professional sport, but because they're making money, but you're not earning a living wage. ESPN, I don't know why you're putting this out if it's some type of propaganda for certain schools. But of course, you're having schools where North Carolina is number one, and their biggest producers are men's lacrosse and soccer. Which if you're in men's lacrosse, we just said they're barely making any money. That's boosting them to having 140 draft picks overall the last couple of years. Maryland was second with their men's lacrosse was their number one sport. Again, get rid of that, and I want to see this list again because the top three, Duke's three, men's lacrosse is one of their top sports, and Kentucky's the first one where it doesn't rely on that. Their sports are basketball, baseball, and football. So Kentucky's fourth. They've had, 93 draft picks. And then, actually, that doesn't even make sense because they're giving them a draft score. Kentucky had 93 picks, but Notre Dame's fifth with 109 picks. So I don't know if they're adding in the rounds that these players are picked, which that even sways it more for Major League Lacrosse where you're only having 20 teams and you can have a legitimate chance at 5 first-round picks every year because there's not that many teams for Duke and Maryland and North Carolina to boost those numbers. So someone sent that in. I figured I'd talk about it. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
I don't know. I think it's just it inflates the numbers. I've talked about it before, where you look at statistics and you look at what are the things that you can prove any point that you want by pulling whatever statistics you want. And I just think that's one of those prime examples when you look at those. If you have to pull across, I think a fair analysis of some of that is take programs that are making money through their sports and seeing what the revenue generating sports do for some of those other programs, as opposed to ones that take it away.
Yeah, and they said that they cut off baseball after like 20 rounds or something, 10 rounds. Like their draft is ridiculously long, so that makes sense. And I see they're picking numbers here because LSU and Florida both have 122 draft picks, so they're well above the Kentucky and Duke numbers. Duke only has 88, but of course Duke, they're getting a ton of first round picks in basketball. They're probably getting a ton of first round picks in lacrosse, so that's going to boost their numbers in favor of first round picks. Where smaller sports or sports like the NFL, where it's tougher to have a first-round pick, you're not able to inflate those numbers. So, yeah, you're picking what numbers you want. I don't know if they're going for an ACC slant here. Maryland's up there. They're Big Ten now. But with Duke and UNC at the top, with Notre Dame, I know they consider Notre Dame in the ACC, even though they're technically independent to me because I'm football first. I just don't see. So it's an interesting list, but that's my take on it. They're skewing the numbers. They're picking random sports. I understand to boost some other schools or not, because if you get into if you're just looking at the main draft and you're only doing men's sports, you're going to see the same big schools you see in every sport. The Ohio States, the Florida States, the Alabamas, who are on this list, Florida, LSU, and you're going to eliminate some of those other schools that don't get the football numbers or the baseball numbers and rely on other sports. But if you're trying to go for equality, just leave lacrosse out. I understand you put softball in because baseball, whatever. I guess that kind of balances it out, but I don't know at this point. Let's kick into high tempo, Matt. What do you got this week?
But I tell you what.
You can go.
Well, for this week, I was kind of, I really didn't have a whole lot. I was looking at something we talked about last week. It was a little bit of the opening. So to kind of piggyback a little bit off of what we talked about last week, 165 players made the cut in 2018 and got to go to the Dallas Cowboys practice facility with expenses paid by Nike. So here we go. We just had an issue where with, what was it, Adidas that was paying for athletes for basketball.
Yep.
You now have Nike paying for all these athletes to come in for football. I think that this is something that longer term, it needs to be something on the radar that if they prosecute basketball, it could be something that could be prosecuted for football down the line, because they're not taking the scrubs from across America. You're looking at the people who they have the kids that have done well in the regionals. So when you look at the people who've done well at like a New Orleans opening or one of the bigger openings, they get invited to the big one. And this is 165 players that get invited to Dallas. You're taking the top of the top, and now those are the ones that are going head to head to try to fight not only for ranking but for scholarship. So you're looking at the best of the best. So I think that's something definitely to keep in mind. And it's the 8th year that they've been doing this. So this isn't something that's been around for years and years. This is something that's been new to the sport that's really trying to help recruiting and maybe pulling these lower, not lower, but just kids that maybe aren't having a lot of exposure. You go to a regional, you do well, and it puts you on a bigger spot, a bigger stage.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. I think it's something that they will look at, and I don't know if there's anything they can do about it. And I will say the school that's going to be scrutinized the most is going to be Oregon due to their ties with Nike. And I will say it does play a factor. When I started to go to school at Michigan, we had a deal with Adidas. And when Harbaugh came in, he brought a new deal with Jumpman, the first football school to have Jumpman, which is a Nike property. And he basically just came out and said, hey, we know it's a huge recruiting tool when you go to these camps. Adidas doesn't run a lot of football camps. They do basketball, they do soccer. But if you're going to compete in football, we're going to switch. Michigan ended up taking less money to go with Nike just for the extra exposure. And I would say it paid off. Michigan's had, with Harbaugh, 2 top classes. I want to say one was top 5. I don't think the first 2 both were. But this year he's right now sitting at 3rd in the 2019 recruiting rankings. So would that play a factor? If they would have stayed with Adidas, would that have made a deal? I don't know, because I think most of the top 10 football schools are all with Nike. Besides, I think, well, who's out? UCLA, they're never going to be in the top 10 of recruiting. Wisconsin, I think, is with Adidas. NC State's with Adidas. They're never going to be in the top 10 of recruiting.
Never say never. Never say never. Never say never with UCLA. With just signing Chip Kelly,
well,
I think with his experience that he had with the Philadelphia Eagles and being from Oregon, it may roll back into it. Don't count them out.
But I'm baiting you in because I wanted you to bring up Chip Kelly, because if you remember at Oregon, old Chip Kelly had that show clause penalty against him because he wasn't actually recruiting. He was paying these agents at these night camps to get guys to sign. And that's why
speculated.
That's why he ran out of the league. He went to the NFL. Why do you think he waited 1 year to come back?
Speculated.
No, he waited till his cause was over.
He got cash and money, homie. Because the Philadelphia Eagles were willing to pay cash money. And then
I'm not saying the NFL thing. I'm saying after.
It's easy money.
Didn't he sit out a year, though? I believe he sat out 1 year. He got fired from.
Well, he sat out a year because he got fired from the Eagles, and then why would you hire someone who has the most predictable offense in the NFL? There's nothing that says, and why would you go from the Philadelphia Eagles to the DeVry School of the Blind?
Well, I think
you're not going to just drop from the Eagles to.
Well, hold on. He went from the Eagles to the 49ers, and then he got fired there. They brought in whoever they brought in, Kyle Shanahan, which was last year. And
yes.
And Chip Kelly, he didn't coach last year. But there were rumors that Tom Herman, whenever he got hired at Texas, that before they hired Herman, they were looking at Chip Kelly, but the reason they stayed away from him was due to the show clause penalty, because he had to wait 5 years. I think he had, or 4 or 5 years from Oregon, whatever it was. Like, it worked out perfectly where if he sat out 1 year, he wouldn't have to be interviewed. If you're an NCAA coach and there's a pending investigation on you, you have to answer it because it's like a legal thing. Something with the government and the way the NCAA is tax-free. Like, he would have had to sit down and say those. But since he waited it out, he waited that extra year, now that's kind of thrown away. Think about it like if you have, what is it, 7 years for your tax or credit report or something. If you have a negative mark, after 7 years, they have to throw it out. That's kind of what the NCAA did with Chip Kelly. And so I will say, if you're looking at it, it looks pretty damning. And will he be a good recruiter there? Because he was lazy as hell at Oregon. If you're lazy once, relying on other dudes to just deliver you recruits, don't be surprised if it happens again. The big key is he didn't sign with the Nike school. I believe UCLA, they're either with Under Armour or Adidas. I can't remember who, but they have like the top contract now. I believe they took the Michigan contract at Adidas, the high-paying one. Whatever Michigan was, I think the deal that Michigan had was anyone that signed a deal, they would get the bump up so that they would remain the highest paid contract. And I think that's what UCLA got, so I believe they're with Adidas. I could be wrong on that. And that could have been why he stayed away.
I think I'm going to have to agree with you.
So,
but I'll also say this. When you look at what Chip Kelly was able to do, he left Oregon. Oregon was arguably a contending power. He went to the Eagles. They were a contender. Went to the Niners. At the end of this past year, they're a contender. Everywhere he's been along the way, argue the points, good or bad along the way, but he's getting teams where they need to be. I don't think you can write UCLA completely off right off the bat. he's shown that he's a successful coach along the lines everywhere he goes. Teams just have to be willing to stay the course with him and let him do his thing.
I will say, I think he's going to be in the same predicament that Harbaugh was when he came from the NFL, where he's relying heavily on his quarterback to run his offense. Now, whether or not those schemes are going to be easy reads or a good quarterback system, but losing Josh Rosen, I think, is a huge blow. If he would have came in and had Rosen for at least 1 year, I think that would have put him in a better position. Now, the old UCLA coach, they were recruiting like gangbusters. Rumors that they were cheating in football. I can't remember if this was before the Adidas deal. I think they might have always been with Adidas, but they had signed a couple 5-star recruits, and they were close to having a top 10 class, if not a top 10 class. I don't think a couple of those 5-star people showed up, though. I know they had a 5-star tight end they got out of Connecticut. I forget the kid's name, but I don't think he actually played it down. It was very similar to how Ole Miss kind of shot up the rankings for a year or two, and then when you don't win, I mean, they had Jim Mora. It's hard to keep those kids. So kids want to play with Chip Kelly. It's very similar, very, very similar to the Harbaugh when he came back. Because if you remember, the media was saying that he's hard on players and they don't like his system and he's very strict. And the same things were said about Chip Kelly. And ironic that they both left the 49ers with ownership talking shit on them. I mean, two successful coaches elsewhere for their treatment of players and other players saying that they were treated well, but as soon as they left the 49ers, rumors came out that they were tough on players and they didn't like the system. So is that a San Francisco thing? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But they both come from the same place. Granted, Chip stayed out west. Does he have the contacts? Another thing, since I don't have a high tempo this week, I did see Florida State is recruiting out west. They're going to try to schedule some West Coast games. I know we talked about this off the air. What are your thoughts on that? You want to share?
I actually like the fact that Florida State's reaching out west. I think to me, as an old head, I think Florida State has the ability to recruit a brand that goes across the country. I think that they're in a very good spot. I think it helps that having Coach Willie Taggart coaching at Oregon, he's made a lot of connections in Oregon and California and a lot of those places. Why wouldn't you tie into it? They signed that 5-star Woodbay at the very tail end at the 11th hour of the last recruiting cycle. It makes sense for him to continue to build on that and try to go back and forth. I think when going back to an earlier conversation that we had about players and schedule, and when you look at the schedule, if you're scheduling some of these games out west, it helps recruiting, because now when you're looking at why can I only make one game? If you're scheduling some games in the West, maybe I make it to a home game, and then maybe I'm able to make it to one of the road games that are closer to home, and I'm able to travel. As a recruit, maybe that's something that you're willing to say, well, now my parents can go to 2 games, or they can go to 3 games, as opposed to, well, fingers crossed, I hope that it's on ESPN3, or I'm hoping that they televise it because I'm not going to be able to see my son play under any other circumstance. So I think it's a good thing.
Oh, I think it's the perfect time for it, too. That's why I wanted to get your thoughts. Because with the way the Pac-12 seems like they're flailing out there, they didn't get a win in the NCAA basketball tournament. Football hasn't been going well for them at all. And now you're looking at other teams coming in, and they can point to that instability when they have ADs coming out and saying, well, we thought we'd be getting more money from the Pac-12 network, which is kind of like a posturing thing. So you're out there, you're recruiting, and you're like, do you really want to go to this unstable conference where you're not able to compete against the other big conferences? So it is an additional selling point. Come to Florida State, compete for championships, play on New Year's, then get drafted, play on Sundays. Very easy sell, I would think, to kids out west compared to what other schools out there besides USC can really sell that. I mean, Colorado's not Colorado of old.
But I will say this, though, just to be a little bit of devil's advocate, one of the things that you got to look at when you're doing that is that if you're going to spread from Tallahassee to California and Oregon and Washington, and you're going to spread that far west, you got to make sure that you don't isolate your base, because your base is Tallahassee down to Miami. And if you isolate a lot of those recruits, and even into that lower Georgia area, if you take away from that core recruiting area, you better not miss. If you're recruiting kids from all over the place, you want to make sure that you're pulling the recruits from across the country. They're going to add value to the team. And I think that they have so far. But one of the issues that led to some of the issues that Florida State had in the early 2000s is that they piggybacked off of the success that they had, and they whiffed on some of the recruits across the country and missed out on the local talent, and it pulled away that led to Miami and Florida and some of the other schools in the area building up the stockpile. So you got to make sure you're recruiting at home as well.
I think they got to approach it like Notre Dame and Michigan do. And I know those two schools kind of point at their academics, but you sit at one or two of the, Catholic powerhouses where you're going to have a lot of the big name guys come through, build a connection there, and then hopefully you're able to pull them away. Like I noticed those two are always in on the same kind of recruits that Stanford's in the top 5 on. I just saw a kid from the opening in a similar situation out west, and his top 5 was like Stanford, Michigan, Notre Dame, Duke, and someone else, USC or something, where those are the kind of kids you're able to pull when they're taking those things into account. Florida State's going to have to find their inroads. Maybe they can't compete academically on the same level. I don't know. But they have to find something, get inroads, get one or two kids coming. I look at I think there's a couple kids like from Georgia that Harbaugh's been recruiting, like a pair of brothers. You get 2 or 3 kids coming from the same school, and then you get a pipeline at that school. Maybe you don't get a top recruit every year, but hey, whenever they do have one come up, then you'll be a coach on the call. So I think it varies by coach, and if Willie Taggart already has those inroads, then you really don't have much to worry about, because he'll probably know, I'm not going to alienate my base, but I'm not going to also burn these bridges that I built. So we'll keep an eye on that stuff. Going along here, because we're pushing it time-wise into the Steel City update. I'll start with the Pirates, dude. Brutal. Again, coming off a loss last night. 17-1. 17-1 against the Dodgers. And it's not just like a one-off thing, because you're like, yeah, teams can get killed every once in a while. But this is on the back of them losing the way they've been losing. 4-6 the last 10 games. Again, a losing record. 40 wins. I keep looking at the Tigers. Tigers are doing worse. With only 38 wins, they're 2-8 in their last 10. Since I made that comparison a few weeks, that's basically how I'm going to look at the baseball season. What is it coming down to? I saw they were doing another push online. I don't know if it's kind of like you hear about people doing like the fake accounts from like the GMs, but I've been seeing a lot of people trust the process type deal coming out from Pirates fans, like responding to the official Pirates accounts. And I just think to myself, how can that be? How could actual fans think that this is a process that the Pirates are going through? If you look, just go to their Wikipedia page or just search Pittsburgh Pirates here at Google, and you can see the last time they were relevant, East Division title, 1992. There is no process here. You're going on decades long. I'm hurt. There's no way around it. So they brought up a guy. Of course, Rick gives me a little bit of insight since he's not here. They brought up a guy. I think it was Keller. I don't know the first name. Is it Max Keller? Something like that. He got called up to the AAA. Automatically, as soon as he got up, he got shelled. And I'm thinking, well, hopefully he can get things under suit here, because that would be the most Pittsburgh Pirates thing. Get your top-ranked pitching recruit, have him come up to AAA, and he just gets shelled, knowing that it will never work out in the majors. So I hope that doesn't happen. He can get things situated. But that's how it looks for the Pirates right now. Negative for the Steelers, getting ready for camp. That's coming up. You're kind of still in the silly season here. Browns were Steelers were letting the Warriors know that Antonio Brown is not available for them to cherry pick for their super team. Things like that. These are what are trending in Steelers world as we just get ready for football season to happen. I do have a football tidbit coming up here in a second. But Penguins, they have signed Jack Johnson and Matt Cullen. Johnson signed a 5-year deal worth $3 million, and Cullen signed a 1-year deal. He's 41 years old. My thing with Johnson is, I think they could have went with 3 years for him. 5 years on a dude that's 31, and I understand hockey's a sport where you can play long. Look at Jaromir Jagr played forever. And Matt Cullen, obviously they signed him. He's 41. But I would have liked to see them go for some youth. I said it last week. Go for some youth on your team instead of trying to build up. But they're still going for veterans, and I understand they have to fill holes. But that's my takes on it. Matt, you got anything Pittsburgh related? Have any thoughts on that this week?
Well, when you look at the Penguins, the Cullen re-signing was a good signing. Cullen helped contribute to some of the cup teams, and that was a good thing. When you look at the Jack Johnson, that was a guy that from Columbus was a pain in the ass for a while. So I think when you look at he was a player that they were trying to bring on board for a while. It's great that they finally got it done, and they got it done for a while. Now, what he's going to do to the configuration of the depth chart, I don't know. But I think that at least for nothing else, he provides a little bit of stability somewhere along the lines that we've been missing since it's been gutted out.
Oh, I understand bringing these guys in, but hopefully last season for them was an anomaly because they were both on downward spirals in their careers. I think Jack Johnson had his worst career to date, or season to date, with 3 goals and I think only 11 points with the Jackets last year. And to me, to have a guy that is he on the way out? I mean, most people don't last as long as Jaromir Jagr. That's just the facts. He's 31. Once you hit your 30s, just like any NFL guy, any NBA guy, you're going to have some drop off. So 5-year deal, I'm a little hesitant to be excited about that. Give him a 3-year deal. 3-year deal and give yourself an out. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know if people agree with me or not on that. But anything else you have for Pittsburgh this week?
No, not really this week. It's kind of been slow.
So the NFL, we're circling back around to that. Julian Edelman, they upheld his suspension. He's gone for the first 4 games this year. And if you remember when this dropped, there were rumors that it was only the first thing to drop with the Patriots because he wasn't banned. I think the way they tried to do his appeal, he wasn't caught for a ban or something that's on the actual banned list. It's like a new thing. So it's either pointing that he's ahead of the curve or something else. Now, he said he wasn't on anything, and he wanted more data, and that's how he fought this. Which, the NFL, they don't care. What do you think? They're going to go ahead and push all this data to you, Edelman? Like, don't be an idiot. You saw what happened with Deflategate. They can just suspend whoever they want. They don't have to have that one guy that's doing the right thing to go back and be like, we made a mistake. No way, they're never going to do that. They're going to double down. They're going to double down. I'm surprised they didn't suspend him for longer. And I mean, realistically, it wouldn't have worked out. I'm actually surprised they didn't cut it in half. Normally, if players appeal, that's what they do because they usually give in. But for some reason, they're trying to make a statement on him. And can you blame him? Dude hasn't played. He's always getting hurt. So if there's some new medicine out there, something that's supposed to help him get in shape and not get injured, can you knock him for trying it? I mean, it's not on the banned substance list. And so maybe they do retroactive suspensions. I don't know, but he was out. Wasn't he out for the playoffs last year, or did he come back just in time? I think he missed how many games a year? So I don't know. What do you think on that?
I don't know. I think something's fishy. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think he's just going to take his suspension, and you won't really hear anything else from it because he'll come back from that suspension. He'll be average. It's not like he's going to come back and suddenly, like, the scheme in New England is what it is. So whoever they have, they just drafted the guy from Miami, and they'll plug him in and they'll roll. It'll just be whatever it is. So I don't think that it's going to affect them drastically. I think that they'll make do with what they have, and when he comes back, he'll contribute. Just because I think that's the way that they do things. It's everyone has a role. They have the cogs in the machine, and they'll just plug them back in, and there they'll go.
Well, I'll do some speculating here from the Pittsburgh side of things. You have to think, if Edelman really did get caught with a future substance, maybe that bomb that was supposed to drop was Tom Brady. Dude's like 40, and I love Tom Brady. But you have to think, if there's something that someone in the Patriots are using that's ahead of its time, wouldn't it be tied to him? I mean, how can you play at that elevated level for that long of time? And that's just speculation. That
this is
that's the message board rumors.
If we're gonna,
people think that
if you're gonna totally speculate, though, that you would think that you're gonna hear it would be a lot louder, because the same people that are saying the issues with Brady and his things, that they're pushing that on the Gronk, and that's why Gronk's looking for a WWE contract. That's why they're trying to trade him. They're trying to move him. Everything cycles back and forth. That if I think there were a little bit more smoke to it, I think you would see a little bit more fire coming out of the New England camp. Even though Belichick has done a great job of kind of keeping things as tightly sealed as possible, I think you're starting to see a little bit of smoke coming out of that camp.
Well, yeah. It seems like they have some investigation going every year. You go back to, what was the first one? Spygate, Deflategate. Now you have this. All these other things going on. Every year it seems like something's going on there. But I will say that if I'm going to speculate further, what if it wasn't really anything? Did you see Sammy Sosa came out? He seems to be on the cover of like all these magazines now. I don't know what's going on with him. He came back in the spotlight, and he said that now he didn't take performance-enhancing drugs, and he was kind of like, I don't know what he said, but was he confused? I mean, he was on the grand jury, and he said he admitted to doing it, and now he's coming back. How many years later? After Mark McGwire has already said that he cheated, Sammy's kind of doing like a farewell tour, going around saying like, yeah, I actually didn't cheat. Put me in the Hall of Fame. And give me the record. I don't know if he's actually thinking that or saying that, but that's how it feels to me, that he's trying to get his due of making the Hall of Fame. And I just think of that. And with all the fake news, you never know. Because of that report, I looked into it, supposedly names players, but it was never actually released. And it was a medical report for some testing Major League Baseball was doing. To see if their drug tests actually worked. So with all the fake news out there, how do you know they didn't just fake that report and leak a bunch of big star names to get some reporter a break? There's no way to fact check it. The only reason that it actually held up was a couple people like Sammy Sosa admitted to doing it after they said they heard that their name was in there. So they came clean just in case it was released, and it was never released. So I'm actually all for it. He should go around and tell people he didn't do it, and he would like to take that back. If I were him, he should be tweeting at President Trump right now, trying to get that out of the records. I don't know if that was a federal court or wherever he admitted that, but I think that's what he should be doing. That's the next step. Sammy, if you're listening right now, or if you hear this, go ahead, try to get a hold of Trump or whoever out there to clear your name. He's pardoning all kind of people right now. Get your name out of the books, because I don't think they have the proof. I don't think they have it. Same with Edelman. What's it hurt trying? Get your name out there. Now you're shamed. And let's say, the Patriots cut guys once they get to a certain point. How is a team going to give him a big contract if there's, number one, injury concerns, and now number two, he's under suspicion?
He's not getting a big contract.
Dude,
he's not getting a big contract in New England. Are you out of your mind?
I'm not saying New England.
What kind of asset are you eating?
I'm saying his free agent contract. He's not going to get anything. He's going to kind of fall through. Who's going to sign a guy that's injury prone and has suspicion of performance enhancing drugs? When the Patriots are going to let him go, dude. They always do. They let everyone go. Who do they sign? They don't sign anyone. So he's bound to go somewhere else. And now he has all these black flags. Maybe they're leaking it internally to try to get him to sign for less. That's another conspiracy.
No.
I'm throwing everything out on this show.
He'll sign with the All-American Football League. That's where he can rebound.
Hey, they already took Mike Riley out of, was it Corvallis? Is that where Oregon State is? And he already started to build inroads saying that he loves Corvallis. He's not signing it. He's not selling his house. He's not even listing it in case he needs to come back. He's left Oregon State like 3 times. And they always hire him back. It's like an abusive relationship up there. The dude gets him like 5 wins. Like, just let him go. Let him have his house there. You don't have to hire him every time he's out of a job, Oregon State. Anything else on the NFL before we move into?
But it's Mike Riley. Please hire him back.
That was the saddest day, was him leaving Nebraska for me. I think that's where he was, wasn't he? Or was he at Nebraska? I don't even know where he ends up. They had a whole big circle going on there. He's floating around to Oregon State, Nebraska. I think he was at Nebraska. Then they bring in Scott Frost, and now he's gone. Did he even coach again at Oregon State? I don't know. It's a mess. But he's not good. You're not good. But that's it. Moving on to the World Cup. I've talked about Ronaldo on this show. And my boy, he tried to get it done, but he had no help. They're eliminated. Guess who else is eliminated? Messi.
How do you not have no help?
Dude, he's Portugal. How big of a country do you think Portugal is? It's not like he's playing for Spain. Actually, I don't know population-wise. Maybe I shouldn't be comparing countries off a whim. I could be totally...
Go ahead, just keep shooting from the hip. No, just keep shooting from the hip, because then when you're wrong, we'll just create some sound bites.
Well, I was looking at these are the teams that advanced. Uruguay, which Uruguay is a team that beat Portugal, and they have been crushing fools. And I was thinking, how are they even good? I wouldn't think that they'd have the infrastructure. How would Uruguay have a better soccer infrastructure than the United States? Than the United States.
I'll tell you why. Because in Uruguay, you know what they got else to do? Nothing. Die. You can either play soccer or you can die. That's how you get that good at soccer. When your whole life is like, you better win the World Cup or your motherfucking ass is gonna die. That's how you get really good at soccer. That's
who beat Ronaldo. And then France, of all teams, which I thought France wasn't even picked to go high, they beat Messi in Argentina.
I thought they were ISIS. Well, that's because they got ISIS now. So they got those ISIS fighters. They're just playing for freedom.
Well, they play Uruguay. That might be the next big matchup of this round, this coming quarterfinals. Uruguay-France, July 6th. That's my pick of best game because there's so many unknowns there. I was thinking that was going to line up with a Portugal-Argentina match, and it's the two upstarts. So I'll say that's the game that I think you should watch. If you don't watch a lot of soccer, I'm not sure when it is. It's the 6th. With this Russian time, who knows when it's going to be on. Probably 11 in the morning or 2 p.m. But Uruguay, France, watch that one.
See, I just thought France was just going to quit, so I'm surprised that they're still playing. I thought maybe they'd just forfeit both rounds and just be done.
I don't even remember them being in the last couple World Cups, but I probably just blocked them out because remember whenever we changed French fries to freedom fries? Because they were traitors to the United States cause. That was like 9/11. That's what I think of whenever I hear of France. A place I really, really wouldn't want to be. Next matchup, Brazil. Brazil beat Mexico. And I guess Neymar, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. It's tough whenever you read the name 100 times, but you don't know how to pronounce it. Because normally if I watch soccer, I try to watch it on Univision. Because Univision, their announcers, they speak mostly in Spanish. They do have like an English channel. At least I get it on my channels. There's like a Univision 1 and a Univision 2. One's in Spanish, one's in English. But their announcers are 100 times more passionate than the normal Fox Sports ones. So I'm really not sure how they pronounce that name. But I think it's Neymar. With probably some kind of accent that I don't have. Destroyed Mexico. Well, I guess not really. 2-0. But I was hoping Mexico would get a little bit of a push. But I didn't really want Mexico to win. Why would anyone in the United States want Mexico to win? Doesn't make sense. I saw a lot of people saying to rally around Mexico. It's just, why?
Why?
They're like our number one, but they should be our number one rival. They're the only country that borders us besides Canada. And we're not going to lose to Canada in soccer, although we probably did. That's probably why we didn't make it. But Brazil plays Belgium, another country you'd think wouldn't be that big. But again, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I don't know 100% how big these countries are that are playing. And next, Russia and Croatia. The home team, Russia, who, ironically, we brought this up on the show, were investigated for doping. And FIFA said, you can let those guys that were named doping, I think there was like 11 of them, which is like your whole pitch. Let's go out there and let those dudes play. And now they're in the quarterfinals. So will their streak, will it be expanded upon? I don't know. I do not know. Next is they play Croatia. At Croatia, I've been keeping an eye on them because they kind of tore through.
Because why not? Why not just keep track of Croatia?
I'll tell you. I've been watching them because they tore through the finals, and I think they were undefeated. They beat England, and a lot of the homers were saying, England should have lost that game anyway. Or no, wait, that's Belgium. Maybe I wasn't paying that close attention. But they did go undefeated. And they beat Argentina. They got 9 points. They were in the Argentina one with Iceland and Nigeria. So I thought it's kind of interesting that they would win the group over Argentina. That's why I've been watching them with Messi. Even though they're eliminated now, I didn't think they played Denmark, and Denmark's historically better at soccer. And they tied them and won on penalty kicks. So Russia has a good chance, at least in my mind, to make it to the semifinals. I don't know, though. Croatia has a little bit going for them. That could be another one to watch. I think Uruguay and France has more pure talent. But just for what's at stake for Russia, both teams won on penalty kicks last round. And then the last match, Sweden and England. I watched England play today. And I will say, I complain about American sports and how I just want to mute the announcer most of the time I do. But I really wanted to mute the guy that was announcing because it was a British guy. Of course, Fox Sports, please. I'm an American. Why would you hire a British guy to do England's game? Because the whole time he was whining. Oh, England should have won that game. Oh, England should have won that game in regulation. Yeah, the guys, they just don't have the heart in them anymore because they should have won in regulation. I catch the end of the game. And England was up 1-0. They do like the game's over. They add 5 minutes because of penalties. And Colombia scores. So the whole overtime, the announcer just keeps saying how England should have won and how it kind of made it seem like it wasn't fair because Colombia was getting a lot more shots in overtime. And what happened? Went to penalty kicks. And that dude from Colombia hit the bar. I don't know how you can hit the bar from penalty kicks. It's almost impossible to have your shot blocked. The dude has to dive before you kick it to even have a chance at making it. The one guy didn't even kick for Colombia. He just ran up and tapped it in and watched the goalie dive the opposite way and just laughed. He kicked it straight. No curve, nothing. That's all you have to do. Because the guy has to dive to be able to block it. Instead, the guy kicked it off the crossbar. When that happens, it's a complete meltdown, and they lose. Both goalies made one save. That was the final. Dude kicked it off the top of the bar, and then they just showed him laying there. And the British guy, the announcer, was congratulating himself. Oh, great win for the boys. And now everyone's saying that their players are better than Ronaldo and Messi because they've never made it this far. But we'll see, because pride will come before the fall. They play Sweden. They have the easy side now, though. Sweden, then either Russia or Croatia. We could see England in the finals. I don't want to get ahead of myself, so maybe I'll be able to jinx them by saying that. But, man, I don't know. Seems to be wide open. I don't know. There's not a lot of the top teams that there has been in past years. The Spains, the Germanys. I think German was the last winner. Spain was maybe before that. So it'll be a new champion. Of course, not the United States. You have any thoughts on World Cup? I was going to have a Colin. He said he can't connect. So it looks like that's not going to happen to add into the World Cup discussion. So anything you got, Matt?
I tried to watch. I tried my best, but I think I just have the way that I have to just watch this World Cup is I think I have to just do it game by game, because I have a hard time following along when every time there's anything like close to like a player stepping close to someone, they act as though that their leg is being cut off with a chainsaw. The faking of injuries is on a level during this World Cup, and I know that it's something that normally happens, but it's something that it jumps out so much more when you look at like the NHL playoffs and you look at guys that just enjoy just like pushing their eyes back into socket, or like there's like actual injuries and losing teeth that they're like, yeah, I guess I'll just deal with this later. And soccer, it's like, I actually touched your shoelace and they're falling down and like acting like I get the pomp and circumstance, but it takes away from it when you're dealing with real sports.
Well, I will say, I did find it funny that Japan advanced over Senegal because Senegal had more penalties. Because when I watched them play Poland, it was flopping galore, Matt. I couldn't even stand it. I just thought, why? And then when it happens, though, as they're doing that, delaying the game, you can get a yellow card. Those dudes ended up with -6 penalties against them. So, of course, they let Japan in. So I just found it funny that that's the final tiebreaker. If both teams have the same amount of goals, same amount of points in the group stage, they look and see who's acting like bigger idiots out there. And Senegal, you're gone. So I was like, thank God. After watching that, you're right. It was so brutal. And then to see a team like Colombia, who I was surprised. I liked watching them play. They seemed aggressive. Just couldn't get it done against England. To watch that different style against the flopping style, some teams are so hard to watch. The England-Colombia game today, not a lot of flopping. Very hard-fought game. Those dudes were trying to win. But when you're trying to do penalties, I just think it comes down to you're not talented. Not talented enough. So they have to try to do something extreme. And luckily, it seems like this year, the group stage kind of have eliminated that. So most of the teams that made it through, I haven't seen a lot of that in these later rounds. So keep an eye on that. Bring that back in next week if you watch some of these games. Well, I guess we'll be out on our vacation, but we can talk about it. See what we can find, if we can find a place to watch some of these. But once you're in this part, not a lot of flopping. I think that's just honestly due to the talent discrepancies. And maybe it's a strategy the United States should employ. Let's just start flopping. I would assume we have the best actors. We talked about having the best athletes. Why not get like Tom Cruise to teach our guys? Or I know that's a joke.
Ah, my leg.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's in town. He can do, what was his thing? Get to the chopper. He can do something related like that to get to the guys. Penalty kick. I bet if you yell, our floppers in the NBA, they could teach him a couple things. LeBron, have him jerk the head back, grab the eye, do something like that. That'll get the attention of the ref. As a dude you're way bigger than, just knock him down. Because that was one of the things that the British guy kept saying. He's like, well, that one guy out there, he's just so much bigger that they're not double teaming him. Like he wanted Colombia to double team the slow British guy when they didn't have to, because he was just bigger. And then they were shutting him down, and he was mad that they couldn't get an open kick. It was so bad. It was like, no, your guy, just because he's bigger and he's not flopping around, or the Columbia guys aren't flopping around, they're able to shut him down. So I think when you get speed or size and that matches up, you don't have to flop. Don't have to flop. So, I don't know. Speaking of LeBron, we did have the NBA since we're closing out on time here. What are your thoughts, Matt? Just the NBA in general. Are you looking forward to next year? I know
just
the 76ers,
the NBA in general,
they were close. 76ers were close. How you have to have
the Sixers were close, and here's the argument that I had to make. And I know this is a little bit obscure, but when you look at the way that the NBA Finals ran in the late 80s, or we'll say through the 80s and into the 90s, you had the Bulls with Jordan and Pippen. You had the Celtics with Bird and whoever the conglomerate was. And you had the Pistons. So the East was stacked. And it was like they slobber knocked each other. And then there really wasn't a whole lot of finesse by the time they got to the finals. But now we're seeing it on the other side, where now it's a more heavily stacked. Now with LeBron, with the Lakers, I think it's going to be more heavily stacked, where you're going to see more of an emphasis with Golden State, and the Lakers are supposedly going to be there. I don't know that LeBron to the Lakers is going to put them over the top. Honestly, I don't. I'll be surprised. I think LeBron's a good player, but is one player single-handedly going to take them from mid-level to beating the Lakers that just signed Bogey? No, I don't think that they're going to do it. I think it was a great attempt.
Bogey. He goes by Bogey.
Whatever the hell he goes by. He's still going to the team to beat added another player that it just stacks the deck, that makes it that much more difficult. The East knows what they're dealing with. They just got to they got to do what they need to do to try to compete, because they know going in you got a superstar on the other side of the bracket. So you better be fresh, and you better be ready to go, and you better be ready to take them deep into the playoffs, because they're gonna come out guns a-blazing, and you better be ready for it, or else you're gonna be embarrassed on a national stage.
Oh, I'll pull right into that. I think you're right. I like your East thing that you brought up, because you'll see right now a lot of the ESPN people are starting to push out, hey, maybe there shouldn't be East and West divisions anymore. Maybe it should just be the top 16 teams. And I'll tell you why they want that. Because the ratings haven't delivered. They paid 20... What I send you guys? I forget what numbers I sent you. They paid $20-something billion for NBA TV rights. I think it was 24. While the NFL, they paid 27. There's no way that the NBA is close to being as valuable as the NFL. I looked at the numbers before the show, because we had a buddy text us earlier about the NBA and how it's not awful, when it totally is. Their playoffs averaged like 4 million people, which is like a 2 rating. You know who else gets 2 ratings? Baseball games. If your playoffs are getting the same things as like some Saturday baseball games, or like we'll put it college football. They always say college football isn't as popular as professional sports. The Michigan-Florida game last year, opening day, was a 5. That beat almost all of the NBA playoff games. The Florida State-Alabama opener was a 7-something, which beat almost all of the NBA playoff games, except for the finals. But when your finals are dropping, what are people tuning in to see? They're going to see a bloodbath. It's been a sweep. It's going to be a sweep. Like you said, the West is stacked. And the East, back in the day, the East was stacked. You started with the Celtics in the 80s. They were going up against the Lakers. It was going to be one of those two teams. Then the Pistons came, getting some more wins for the East. Rodman goes to the Bulls, whatever. That helps them go over the hump. Because Jordan couldn't beat the Pistons. Jordan could not beat them. Go back and look at that record. So don't say like, well, LeBron couldn't beat the Warriors or whatever, so he's switching teams. Jordan couldn't beat them. Jordan could not beat them. It might not I don't know if Rodman switched, if they finally beat him before Rodman switched, but Rodman switching was a huge deal because he was a big part of those Piston teams. So then they're winning however many championships for the East. So we've had this imbalance before. But what sucks is the free agency, with them raising the salary cap to match the TV deal, which is why I brought it up. They get paid a ton of money. That raises the salary cap. Now you have teams that are able to pay more money for these superstars, and then you have them take non-max deals because there's no reason why Boogie Cousins couldn't get paid more than what he got. He said that there were no other significant offers, which means he had other offers, but he just wanted to make a one-year deal to win a championship because that's what everyone's judged on these days. Boogie Cousins is an all-star center. He had an offer from the Celtics. If he would have went to the Celtics, I think you might have had a legitimate final showdown because that gives them extra depth underneath with Tatum and Horford and something that they didn't have, another star. 4 all-stars they would have had on their team. Definitely would have pushed them into the finals conversation with Kyrie and Gordon Hayward coming back. But instead, he went to the Warriors, giving them a starting lineup of 5 all-stars. You know how ridiculous that is? That would be like an NFL team having all-stars or Pro Bowl guys at running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, and left tackle or something. Like 5 dudes on the Pro Bowl team on one offense. How ridiculous would that be? That's what you got in the NBA. So the fact that LeBron went to the Lakers just shows that I don't think he's looking to win a championship right now because, like you said, Matt, he's not going to get it done. And I'll say one key thing. Everyone thought that the Lakers might compete this year, but they were counting on them getting Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Paul George signed with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Good for him.
He's off. And that, you know what that makes? That makes now 4 teams that I consider legitimate because Thunder still have Russell Westbrook. So you have the Rockets, who were a Chris Paul injury away from pushing the Warriors out this past season. They're going to be back. You have the Thunder now with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. You have the Warriors, and now you have LeBron's Lakers. In the East, let's be honest, you only have the Sixers and the Celtics. There's no one else. So you're going to get one of those 2 teams. Boogie didn't go to the Celtics, so now is it really a toss-up? I mean, you're relying on Kyrie Irving coming back and Gordon Hayward for the Celtics. If not, I just think no matter which one of our teams makes it, Matt, it's going to be a bloodbath in the finals, and it's going to be against the Warriors. So people aren't going to tune in. LeBron could find himself out in the second round of the playoffs. He might not even make it. I tell you what,
I think that the big part is LeBron going to the Lakers hinged on his ability to pull Kawhi Leonard or pulling other free agents with him to the Lakers.
Yeah, and that's why I thought the rumors were out. When did that even happen? The rumors were out before the story broke because he had enrolled his kids into public school in LA. And I'll be honest, I follow college recruiting a lot, and there's a lot of psychos out there that know these kind of things. They're like, hey, so-and-so just bought a new car and they had a so-and-so school decal. I know he's committing there. And just like LeBron, they're like, he signed with the Lakers. Why would he enroll his kids in school in LA? A couple days later, boom, he's at the Lakers. So we already knew he was going there. So why wasn't he able to get Paul George? I don't know. But you would think that he would have at least tried to get Boogie Cousins. Maybe that was one of the deals that he didn't think was significant. Why sign with LeBron? You know, someone that, I mean, it's clear that LeBron coaches the team. It's very clear. I think the Cavs owner even threw some shade. Now it can be back to being the Cavs or something like that after LeBron left. So everyone knows he's calling the shots. Is it a surprise that no one wants to play with him? I mean, let's ask that question. Everyone gave Kobe shit for people not wanting to play with him. Who wants to play with LeBron? Look at how much hate J.R. Smith got after that game. When it was clear LeBron was at the top of the key and that the finals game 1, he wasn't telling him to call timeout either. So don't throw JR under the bus. I mean, I don't know at this point. It's just a sore product. I wanted to talk about it because, like I said, we had comments from people that listen to the show about the NBA being trash and stuff. There's no team in Pittsburgh, so we don't follow it as close. But it's clearly the biggest storyline because it affects other sports now. Because,
but I think that when you look at this now, I think that you have to take it into perspective that we look at LeBron as just a single player. So when he goes down to Miami, he comes back to Cleveland, and now he goes out west. I think everyone's following him because the bottom line is he's selling money wherever he goes. So I think that when you're looking at where he's going, put it into perspective with where the other teams have been historically, and I think that it makes sense. It doesn't hurt the NBA overall, but I think where it hurts them is they just have to learn. They have to figure out some way to frame the Lakers and Golden State so that they make their money on the front end as opposed to on the back end where they would say, well, it's Golden State and it's Cleveland in the finals. So maybe you make your money ahead of time in the Western Conference Finals and try to stage something a little bit more aggressively with the Celtics and the Sixers, and you try to frame if it comes down to those two teams, maybe you frame it that way so that those two teams can stay in.
That's a good point, and I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see some type of split in marketing where the NFL tried it, what was that, like 10 years ago with Peyton Manning, where they made him the face of the league. And it didn't work out because he wasn't winning. So then they kind of went back to team marketing, where it's always like, if you watch the commercials, you can see the difference in the NBA or NFL. The commercial will be like, Redskins, Cowboys, Monday Night Football. And then it just shows the teams. Where in the NBA, when you see a commercial, it's like LeBron and the Cavs take on Steph and whoever. Like they market the players first. That the NFL stopped doing. It seems to me like they're trying to take a book out of the professional wrestling, WWE. And that's the next turn that I'm expecting. They're going to they should make out the Warriors to be the villain. Because that's the only twist right now. They have a lot of young kids that were into basketball. And if you're watching, kids don't want to be bored. And what's more boring than watching the same team win over and over again? It's going to be hard for them, I think, to attract new fans. And we'll see if it works. We'll come back in a few years and look back and see. Did the NBA going towards all these all-stars or superstars, they call them, a clear page right out of WWE. Superstars, that's what they call John Cena. That's what they started calling LeBron and them. Like, you know where they got that from. So, is it going to work? Because now kids aren't attached to the teams. So when these guys start to retire, how are you going to build up that next wave? How many people grew up watching LeBron when he retires are going to be done with the NBA? I think it's a valid thing that they're going to have to gauge. And what better way? They had him as a villain when he switched. Do they make him a villain again? Or do they try to do LeBron versus everybody and have him go out on top? I don't know. I honestly don't know. You have any final thoughts on that, Matt, before we wrap it up?
I don't. I just, in general, I think that there's a lot of people that are going to proclaim it dead, but I don't think it's as necessarily bad as what it is. I think it looks bad because you have an all-star roster on one side versus everyone else. But the bottom line is when you look at how the games play out, if you're looking at Golden State that has to, hopefully they do a 7-game series. It may actually play out to help out the Eastern Conference for them playing each other out. But we'll see. We'll see where the rest of the free agents land, and maybe that'll give us a little bit more insight as to what the future holds for these teams.
Yeah, I just want to look at the comparison for the NBA and the NFL, because that marketing, where does it go? Everyone keeps talking about the decline of the NFL. Why not the NBA? Because you're watching it fall in real time. Where the NFL, the only thing that seemed to be bringing it down was the weird political stuff they were getting involved in and how they didn't face the elephant in the room. Where the NBA, you're legitimately having teams, all players all join up, and just the sinking feeling of, now I don't have to watch basketball next year. I know the Warriors are going to win, and the Vegas line is ridiculous to even make money on that bet. They already said that they're relying on LeBron making Lakers bets to break even because they're worried about the NBA lines, people in Vegas. So we shall see. Maybe one day there'll be a team in Pittsburgh, since there's always that one storyline every December where someone starts that right after football season ends, January, whenever, about bringing a team in. For the final bell, mine, I'm going to kick mine up. I actually have it on the topic because I didn't want to forget it. We talked about the Learfield Directors Cup. I think we did a few weeks ago, which is like it ranks college football programs or college sports athletic departments, basically. And their final ranking came out. And teams that were at the top all year fell because of the addition of some sports. And it goes back to our other argument, or I guess not even an argument, it was just me complaining at the start of the show with the ESPN list. When they added Major League Lacrosse to like a draft thing, most people never even heard of Major League Lacrosse or knew that they had a draft. Why would you try to throw that into a statistic and then add your own ranking system to make it even worse than what the story could be? Just give us the real numbers and then throw it out there, or let us sort by sport. Don't just come up with some list. That's kind of how the Directors Cup is. UCLA jumped up to like second or third. I don't even have the list up. Because of beach volleyball. Beach volleyball. How is that different from men's volleyball or women's volleyball in the fall? Like, you can't compete in the regular volleyball, so you create a beach version down in LA? I want to know how many teams, actually, I should do some quick research on this. I wonder how many teams actually play beach volleyball. And I think the Learfield Sports, I understand what they're doing. Stanford wins every year, but I think they should start adding a weight to it based on how many teams play in this. Knowles made a top 10. I know I see you doing the chop. Michigan was number what, 6? So it's not like we didn't make it. Like,
we were beach volleyball. We were there. We were right there with UCLA. That's why I was doing the chop, because as soon as you're like, who has beach volleyball? The Knowles do. That's exactly who has beach volleyball. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up, because when you look at these statistics off air, we joke around about the Directors Cup, but it boils down to there's all these other sporting events that factor into it that you can play in early on. You know, you look at who's qualifying, who isn't, and then all of a sudden you have all these sports that you didn't even realize were playing into it, and now you have teams leapfrogging each other that probably shouldn't even be there. And it's statistics that prove one way or the other, whatever you want it to be.
I need to do some math in my head, but it looks like, so whatever 25 plus 12 is that 37? Trying to do these numbers. It looks like only 37 teams make the conferences. Maybe that's an automatic bid, but dude, that's very, very low. And I would think that, what's football have? 117, 107? Something like that now? I think that should be where you look at it. They should just wait. If there's only a third, take that 100 points, times it by a third, and then whatever. Because it takes your top 10 or something like that. I forget what the exact number is. They don't weight every sport. They take the school's top 10. So I don't see a point, or I don't see the shame in giving, like UCLA, maybe they need those 33 points that they would get from a third of the 100. But why give them 100 if only a third of the teams are there? You're kind of devaluing sports like basketball, say, that has 300 participants. And I know you can't use 300 as your base number. That's why I would say maybe base it out of 100 and whatever the football one is, or whatever the average is. Maybe the average is 300 for most sports, and football is just less. So take football at a percentage. I don't know. Football is most popular, so I doubt that they would do that. So just start at football. Take football, and whatever teams are, if you're more than that, if there's more participants like basketball or women's basketball, you get 100 points, full total. But then take these sports like fencing, what is the other one? Rifle, shooting. And this got me down a rabbit hole because I saw Michigan has national championships in trampoline. Trampoline. Well, I understand that's a sport and you got that and you claim it, but it's not a thing anymore. So I don't think that these new sports, if you're going to do a Learfield Sports best athletic department, come on, guys. Do some type of weighting to make it more competitive. You're just giving Stanford the trophy every year. And I would like to wait it out. Maybe I will, even though I'm still trying to finish up the website for this show because I keep getting sidetracked. But maybe once that's up, I'll be able to dig into some of this stuff. But I wanted to throw it up. That's my final thing for the show this week. Matt, what about you? Moving on to the final bell. What do you got?
One of the final things that I looked at was from the USA Today. They had a new study that showed the girls' soccer has a higher per capita rate of concussions than football. And I think it goes back to something that a long time ago we talked about. When with all the CTE, you look at boxing. You look at the World Cup that's going on. You look at women's soccer. You look at all these other sports that have going on where there's all these higher rates of potential concussions and head CTE injuries. But the only thing that anyone ever gives a rat's ass about is what is for football. It's like there's an axe to grind when it comes to football. And I think that as a football coach, I hold it as an argument that I really want to see. Put the numbers up. Let me see what are some of these other numbers. You can't tell me that a boxer or a soccer that's doing all these like headshots and all these other things with no equipment, even basketball. There's no padding, there's no equipment, there's no nothing. Don't tell me that they're at a lesser risk of a traumatic brain injury than someone at football. That even with all of the padding that goes into football, the lower head rate, the lower brain impact rate. You can't tell me that it's comparable.
I would say, I think you're right with that, but when they're doing the studies, they're looking at what sports make the most money, and if I'm being a pessimist here, or a cynic, you're looking at who's driving these results. It's lawyers or someone that's trying to get a lawsuit out of players. And
absolutely.
And women's soccer is not going to get it done. They're not going to get the same thing. That
was the only. You're right. You're absolutely right, and that's why I made a point of this at the tail end of the show, because the more I thought about it, it was like, you know what? You're right. Like, I saw that it was a report about women's soccer, but women's soccer isn't going to gain traction. But men's boxing, how the hell do you say direct punches to the face of someone is not going to equate to fewer CTE issues than someone playing football? And for many times as people are treating football, you look at a lot of the defensive backs, like my own Deion Sanders. I love my Florida State boy, but for years he was known as he's a great cover corner, but he wasn't a great tackler. He wasn't willing to put his head on the line and tackle people. If that was a reputation that he had, then you don't tell me that he a CTE case that comparatively to someone like Floyd Mayweather, that it's even going to be on the same level. You can't say that it's an axe to grind that's trying to shut down football, and I think it's insane.
Well, I would say the same thing. That's why I don't think football is going anywhere. With your point to the head stuff, boxing, I think they said that those masks that they make you wear amateur-wise, they think that now those might cause more concussions because of the way it blunts the hit. It's able to like restrict your neck, protecting you, and keeping you tighter, where it's basically forcing your brain to jiggle around. And I think what's going to happen is in the future, you're going to see a modified helmet. And I forgot to bring this up last week. So I think it'll make a good stopping point. But we all remember Pittsburgh had a, what do they call it now? Legends. It's a women's football lingerie league. Pittsburgh had a team. They had to sit this year out as they're looking for a new stadium. But those chicks, they wear hockey helmets. Where it has a different thing, number one, to show off their faces, because let's be honest, they're trying to market these beautiful women out there running around in lingerie back in the day. But to make a point, those have a little bit more give to them. And I would think that you're not going to get the same front-on impact. And if lingerie football keeps expanding, I think they added another team. Don't be surprised if who starts to wear full plexiglass or whatever the hell those are, face masks, the NFL. Because number one, then you'll be able to see the faces of these guys out there. And then they'll be able to market them more. And advertisers will be able to see, oh, that's handsome Tom Brady out there, 52 years old. He's out there after winning 7 Super Bowls, playing for the New England Patriots. It's like whatever year it would be.
756 years old.
That's what's going to happen. So
Shut up.
That's
Just
my
shut up.
That's my
Edit
take on it. Dude, they're going to make the helmets different. They're not going to keep doing the steel helmets. They got rid of the leather helmets, and in the future... Hold on, I'm getting a call from the future.
They're gonna make it whatever Tom Brady wants it to be.
In the future, it's just going to be. It's going to be some guy calls into the show and's like, "Wow, I just watched this NFL history films. What the hell did those barbarians have on their head? It was like a full steel helmet that they wore, and they're just going head to head. People's helmets were getting stuck together, and the refs had to detangle them like 2 rams out there in the wild." That's what people are going to say. I can't believe they used to wear those stupid things. How could you see could get poked in the eye when now they have those cool new technology glass helmets? That's the future, Matt. Just get ready for it.
Glass helmets.
Plexiglass, whatever it is.
They hit it really hard. They can shatter, and they can lose it. They can lose an eye in the process.
Plexiglass, plastic, whatever. They have to be something that takes an impact. It's not like a plastic milk jug just caves in on your face. It also doubles as a broken nose protector. Just forms right to it. But that, we'll see you guys. Went a little bit longer today. Thanks for listening. You can follow us, Southbound Sports, on Facebook and Instagram, and S-Bound Sports on Twitter. Rick said he'll be sending a video, so I'll be posting that as well. And we'll see you guys next week.